Maybe it comes from happy childhood memories of collecting cute designs in a sticker book, but I have a true weakness for buying stickers. I buy them by the sheet, but only use one or two. I want them out of my stash and into my albums, but every time I try to use a few more, I end up with a mess of sticker sneeze on my page. I need some ground rules to help me justify my sticker purchases. Glitter Girl, can you help?
Of course I can. I definitely have a big stash of stickers because this is just what I pulled out to work with for today's layout. There's plenty more where this came from, and I really love sticker books, and I love sticker sheets, and I've kept some for a really long time. I like little label stickers, big stickers. Stickers are a good thing in my world. But I have to say that my way of using them has developed over the years, and I want to take a moment to show you how I started scrapbooking, what I did with stickers when I very first started, so that you can see the contrast. So I've just pulled out a piece of paper so that you can imagine my layout here and my amazing sketching skills here. Anyway, so I would start with some photos, and I did really big titles then. So I tended to have my title on a big block like this. And then I would have a photo, usually with a mat. So something like that. And then probably another photo. Everything very square. This is how I started. Okay, so maybe I have two photos like that and this big title, and then maybe I have space for journaling here. And I probably didn't write it straight onto the background. I probably put that onto another card. So I ended up with these pages that were all just blocks. And then I would add my embellishment, and I hadn't learned how to mix embellishments yet. I hadn't, and scrapbooking embellishments have become more sophisticated over time. So when I started, I might have had that big title here, and two pictures. I really hate just PIC for pictures, so now I want to go back in and write that just so it doesn't bother me. Okay, and now I would look at it and think, okay, so where do I add the embellishment? So I would start with a sheet of stickers. I would take the stickers and I would peel one off and I would put it like here. So here's my sticker. And then I would put another one like here. And maybe I put another one over here. And maybe I would put another one here. And maybe I keep going. And I'd end up with stickers here, and here, and here. Now, things that I hadn't learned. I hadn't learned about using the edge of the page. So all of these stickers would have been entirely on the page, and nothing would have touched that edge of the paper. That's one. I hadn't learned about shapes. So instead of any basic shapes, like something geometric, like a circle or a rectangle, or a really little twist on that, like a label, so it's a rectangle with the corners around it, or something like that, these would have all been outline stickers. Like if there was something relevant to frogs in the story, I would go buy a sticker sheet that was full of frogs, and everything would be frog shaped, right? So when you look at this, now imagine that all of those blobs are frogs, like with their little hands and feet splayed out. It makes it a little more chaotic, yeah? And so imagine this is like a photo that's got lots in it. So this is like a big bouquet of flowers, or this is a big beautiful garden. And now it has three like little cartoon frogs over the top. So it would have been a lot easier if there were just a few basic shapes in there, but I hadn't learned about that yet. I also hadn't learned to group. And so I would just spread them out all random. I wouldn't group them and say, okay, I want 3, and I want them to frame the layout, so maybe keep one here, and one here, and lose these 4. Nope, I would just put them anywhere. And I didn't pay attention to the space that was available. So say this journaling card ended, this last line was shorter and I ended up with this space here. I wouldn't have thought to put my sticker here. I would have just put it over the edge anywhere. And if I paid attention to that space, then the sticker would look like it had a nicer home. So those are 4 really simple things that I've picked up over time, and I'm much happier with how stickers come together on my pages now. So I'm going to make a new page today, and let's see if I can put all 4 of those together in one layout. Okay, so there's my little example. Leave myself a note so that I remember all 4 things that we're talking about. And I've pulled out 2 4x6 photos today, just taken a few seconds after each other, and then a range of papers that are real mix and match here. I have this one from Dear Lizzie documentary, which I intend to use as my background. So a ledger paper that's a little bit distressed and has this nice little colorful shot of turquoise. I'm going with turquoise because of the detail on his shirt here. It's just trivial, but I like turquoise as well. So then I wanted something that was a bit whimsical with a bit more of that turquoise. So I'm not going to use heaps and heaps of this, but I want to be able to use it as a border to bring out the turquoise in his shirt. And this is from Amy Tangerine Finders Keepers. Then I wanted something that would play up on this red. He's actually in a train car at Disneyland, and I wanted something red from the train. So I have a cream with red polka dots. That's October Afternoon. I think this is actually a Christmas paper. Yeah, but it's a Christmas paper that's been in my stash for a while. I might as well use this because clearly at Christmas time the Christmas side has not been drawing me in. This is Basic Gray from Mon Ami, and I wanted something that would bring together the gray and the red, so I found this pattern. It has a bit of cream as well. And then something that would bring together the red and the turquoise. So this is also from Mon Ami, and it has that stripe that has quite a few different colors, but it includes the red and a few shades of turquoise. I've opted not to really pick up on the green here, because I think the green, although it frames him in the picture, it doesn't frame him as much as the red. And I think the green makes it more about the train and the location and less about his face. So that's why I went with the turquoise, because that lines up with his face in the picture, and it's something that's unique to him in this picture rather than being anywhere else. That's my logic here. Okay, so I'm going to start with this background. Now I am a little conscious if I spread them out like this so you can see. This has kind of a white with a gray distress. This has a white that's not very distressed at all. This has cream, and this has cream but also gray, and this is kind of similar to that white with the gray. So I am okay to mix those, but I want to be conscious of it because they won't naturally all mix together quite as easily as something where they'd all been white or all been white with gray or all been cream. So it's not that I need to get away from it entirely, it's just something that it helps if I notice it at the beginning so that I can look at it as I go. Since I have that turquoise in the very background and I want to link it to his shirt, I'm going to do my first mat of the photos with this paper that has the turquoise. It's just kind of 2 shades. So one a little bit of darker in the polka dot and then the one that's closer to aqua in the background. And I love photos side by side like this, but I know it's not everyone's style, so you can always leave a gap in between. It's not a problem. Then I think what I want with the mats, I want to add a few more layers behind. I'm not going to do any more that are just a straight mat like that. I'm going to mix these two like this. So I want to bring in that red, but I don't want this cream right against this one. But if I use this one in between, look, the gray matches to this gray distressing on the white, and it has cream in the design. So if I use these two like that, then that's a bit better. And I am going to use that multicolored stripe to bring it all together, but I want to cut 2 larger boxes of this so I can do just a little bit of angling on the mat behind these 2 photos. I've cut that stripe to 3 inches because that's one of those nice numbers that goes into 12. I could have done 4 as well, of course, but I don't know, I thought 3 3 would be a good balance when I got it all stacked up. Because of that mix of the cream and the gray distressing, I thought instead of using brown for my edges, I would bring in some gray. Just using gray ink pad and a little ink blending tool. This is that new small size, which isn't really all that new. It's been out a year or two now, but I only just got one. If you want to see them comparison-wise, that's the difference in the big and the small one is round. And this is the first time I've used it, so I don't have a big review yet. Okay, we're ready to start piecing this together, and I thought I'll use those vertical lines in the background to make use of that one that is a double line, so it has a little bit more weight. And then we'll line that up just next to it. And then these two in the background at just a really, really slight angle. There's this happy day here, but I'm not worried about this first happy, so if that gets covered up, that's okay. But the lines in the ledger will help me see just how big my angles are, and I don't want them to be very big at all. Nice to be pretty small. I could have moved this up a little so I had some more of the stripe, but I think it's okay. I want to make sure that these are to the right of the stripe, however. And then with those two at an angle, I should be able to get my photos pretty straight. I'll just use the ledger as my line and not follow the ones that are angled. So now I have a base of everything. I now have this vertical line here, and what I wanted to do was for that vertical to draw more attention to his face. And seeing this, I'm thinking I really need to move these layers over a little bit more. So I'll move it right over to this happy day, I think. And I'll bring it up a little bit so I have more of that stripe. Now I need to get my photos nice and straight again. I'm thinking my title and my journaling will go on this side. But then I have this space around the photo to work with my stickers and embellishment. Bringing in something for the title and the journaling, I thought I really want to emphasize that whole combination of turquoise and gray. So I'll use turquoise stickers with gray small letter stickers for my title. And I'm going to use a gray lined journaling card. Now this is from an Ali Edwards kit, and it's a 4x6 card, which is going to be bigger than my space here. And I like this little title, but if I leave the card as it is, it's not all going to show. So I'm going to take this top line off the card so that I can just use that as its own element and put it somewhere else on the page. And then I'm going to need to trim a little bit of this down so that it can tuck under here. Photos in place, title and journaling in place, which means now I'm onto my embellishment, and that's going to be a lot of stickers this time. But I want to avoid that whole look of the sticker sneeze and all this randomness that I started with years and years ago. So I'm going to use these 4 little tactics to guide my sticker placement and how I put everything together. I want to look at my page and look at what I want to frame, what awkward spots I have, and how I can use the embellishments to help that. So you might have noticed that I placed this word over on this outside edge instead of in here. And it meant that now I have this little bit of awkward space here. I wasn't sure if I would prefer it all the way over to this spot or not. But but I found, because it was such a short word, that if I put it here, it almost looked like the TR was a separate word from the AIN, because if it was a longer word, then you would just kind of already be reading by the time you got to these extra papers and you wouldn't notice them as much. But because it was a very short word, the line just seemed to separate the letters and it didn't seem so legible. But it does mean that now I have this awkward space. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept the awkward space and use it as an embellishment spot. I know I'm going to put something here. Now the important thing on this page to me is these photos. I want to frame his little face. So I'm going to have this one here, which means I want 2 more spots of embellishment, and that makes it really easy. I can come up here and have a gathering of stickers and embellishments here, and then one down here, and that's going to make this triangle that's going to frame his face. And if I make sure that I bring this one down here, so that if I were to draw a line from one to the other, his eyes and his little expression is going to be inside the triangle, whereas if I put it here, then I'm only drawing attention to the top photo, which, depending on the photos you're using, might be exactly it. But I want to include both of them, so I want this gathering to be low enough that if I go from here to here, his face is inside that triangle. Now, the other thing I wanted to make sure I used when I was placing things is the edges of the page. You can choose to keep everything inside the page, and that's a design choice, but in this case I've already gone right to the edge of this paper. Now you and I know that this is a paper that's sold as the same size as this paper, so this wasn't some never-ending border that I cut to fit so that it would be custom to my page. It was just that length already. But outside the scrapbooking world, if we forget about what supplies look like when they come, then we don't know that that's 12 inches. We don't know that this paper was the same height as this paper. It's a choice for it to go all the way edge to edge, or full bleed as it's called in publishing. So I want to use an edge somewhere else, and you'll notice here I haven't used that edge. So I want to have one more spot where it goes off the edge of the page, and this one makes a lot of sense because if I look at this edge, follow it down to this edge, and then make a third point over here, again I'm using that triangle to frame his face. So everything I'm doing is bringing more attention to the photos, even though I'm adding lots of embellishment to the page. So I have my 3 spots figured out. I've kept in mind the edges, and I've kept in mind the spaces that are available on the page. I want to look at grouping and at including some basic shapes so that the stickers don't end up in chaos. It can really help me to start with some larger stickers so that I can work my way down to the smallest details. So this sticker book, this is from True Stories. It has these larger pieces that are meant to be used as the base layer of layering lots of pieces on top. This one has those shades of turquoise, which I have already started to use here. Once I have a couple of larger pieces picked out, then I just work my way down in size. And so I know I have the turquoise and the gray represented. I'd like to have a little bit of red, and I just start looking for pieces that might work. So I have little red stickers there, and there's 3 of them. They're all different sizes, but they're the same exact color. So I know I could use those and put one in each grouping. And then I quickly flip through little stacks of sheets like this just to see what would grab my eye in case there's something that would be just right. There's some duplicates in there too. Something like this star that has just a little bit of red might be useful, and there's some turquoise elements here with a star too. So put that in the keep pile. And this has some nice red in that heart, which might come in useful. I think this is a little bit too much toward the green, although it's quite close to the thickers. I'll keep it in my yes pile for the moment. And then I have my really small stickers here, and there's even levels to those, so these 3 that are just tiny words are smaller than this one, and then I have these labels, and there's some red and some turquoise in there too. So I have all of this to work with, and once I know that I have plenty available, then it's just a case of diving in and getting started. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm wondering about that blue. I haven't used navy elsewhere, but there is a little bit there. I think I'll go ahead and keep it. I want this one to go all the way to the edge, so I'll cut that one first as my largest piece. It does mean that I'm going to cover up that happy day. That's okay. And I think I'll just do narrow little strips and place one up here and one over here. And now I have my three areas that I'm going to embellish, and I can double check that triangle effect. If I draw this triangle, his face is inside, so that will work. Then a little bit of this gray, and I can cut this into some simple shapes. So I can have the large rectangle for here, and I can just cut these into little narrow triangles. And I'll add gray ink to the edges of this because it's so pale that having a little bit on the edges will help. Just layer that there. So this is basically a case of scaling the sizes. So the big one here with the big sticker there, and then this is a small strip, so the gray is going to be a small strip, so that everything is in a similar balance. It's not exact, I don't need to measure, but I can have a general feeling that things are in scale. I'm going to put this up higher and put something else here. Okay, then I can start looking at different colors, different shapes to add some variety here. So I wanted to bring in that red. I have small, medium, and large, so that's an easy choice. Just looking if I want that straight or slightly angled, and I think because of this angle, it's going to be better on an angle there. This one, I was originally going to use this one over here. I think the better choice is actually to just stick with this one sticker and cut it in half. So that I can bring this into those little layers there, and likewise here. I'll go up a layer in the paper, if that makes sense. So that this one is tucked behind the photos rather than that paper. Now I have quite a bit of layering, but it's all very flat, so it would be nice to pick something that for the next piece, one is something different in each one, so that I don't just have identical pieces, but also something that I can add a little bit of dimension with some pop dots. So I had all those different ones here. Let's see what might work best. I think I like that star up there at the top. I'm going to go ahead and put my pop dots on because then it won't be sticky if I don't take the paper off, and I can move them around just to make sure. I found 3 that are different, but they all work together. They're similar scale, and they all make sense in a way. So I have my star up here, which is that little bit of red so that my lighter color is lifted up toward the top of the page. My red heart works well with this title because it's "You Love a Train," so that works well with the words. And then I love cameras on all sorts of pages because obviously I wouldn't have the page without the photo. And that one is going to work here. Nice to start mixing up these shapes. So I now still have basic shapes, star, heart, and oval, but it means I have something other than just rectangles. Then once I have these in place with their little bit of dimension, I now can see where I have space to come in with my smaller stickers. And I'm doing things like just checking that there's this tiny little bit of red on this side that you can see on the other side of the star, and paying attention to where the edges of the stars go in terms of these different layers, just that I don't end up with some awkward placement that feels a little stilted. Okay. Then I can go to those small stickers that I picked out and look for words and phrases, sentiments that fit the story that I want to tell. Now, although I've added my lighter shape up here at the top to bring that lighter feel up to the top of the page, I also want a little bit of brighter color up here. There's not a lot of red. And I was just looking to see if I wanted to overlap this or leave a space, because I think what I really wish I could do is tuck it behind that sticker, but I think that's, well, actually it might come up. I thought it was going to be too stuck. I didn't stick it too much, so I'm going to be able to do that. My other option was to leave a little gap. I think that's still legible even though the star overlaps. And there's a little extra red here. There's extra red here already. And I think then this sticker is not going to move. So I think this one can just go on the vertical. There we go. And then pieces like this can go across all these layers. These groupings are feeling very much red and turquoise, and that's where I wanted to start, and I'm really glad that that's there, and there's a little bit of gray in each one, so I'm really happy with that. However, I think it's time to add a little bit of contrast. And there's just this little punch of yellow in this stripe, and I have little yellow word stickers, so they seem like a nice way to just add that little bit of contrast. So my idea is to add one little shot of yellow to each of those. Hopefully there is a word for, there are 3 different little words or phrases that will work. And one for each of the others. Again, I think I'll go behind this red sticker. I can make it fit. And then a really small one for over here. Okay, so then I have a little bit of contrast there. Now, what I don't have contrast in is texture. Everything is paper, and the stickers are paper texture. The only texture I have different is this little bit of chipboard. So I'd like to bring in something that's not just paper. So I think I'll do that with some enamel dots, which gives me yet another chance to make little triangles. So I could go with more of the yellow, but I have these 2 shades of turquoise because these 3 enamel dots mimic the shades here in the sticker. I also have some little gray stars. So I think what I'd like to do is to create little triangles with, I was just deciding between the blue dot and the gray star, but I think better to have them all the same shape because they're not the same color. Want this to go over as many layers as possible, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And I can do that on each of them. So I just want each of the enamel dots to touch more than one layer of the design and to create a little triangle around the embellishments. Just tuck this one in so it's right underneath that heart. Okay, so that's a different texture brought in and I'm happy with that. I have this little space here that I'm going to add the date and the location, and then I think probably done, but I'll have one last look. Okay, I have the date and realized the location is in the journaling, so I didn't need to duplicate that. I'm going to add just one finishing touch, which is some little word stamps. These are from an Ali Edwards stamp set, and I'm just going to pick 3 of these that are the little phrases that all match. Put one in each grouping, the smallest one over here, and then that will be it. And I'm going to stamp that in the gray ink that I've used to ink all of the edges of the papers. So I'm going to use this smallest on the go for that small grouping because that's the one that's the most tight for space, and then I have a little bit more room for the other 2. That stamping's pretty subtle, but that's all I wanted to finish the page, just to have that little bit of something that's a little different than what I'd already added. So I start with all those stickers, but then to just finish it off, add the enamel dots and some stamping. And basically follow these 4 little guidelines of things that I learned along the way, from when I didn't like my sticker placement to when I was really happy with stickers on my pages. So that's to use the edges and go straight to the edge if it's going to help the design, to include some basic shapes, which I didn't way back when, to think about the groupings rather than just having individual stickers floating around the page, and to use the space that's already created on the layout, like this little gap that just ended up being a nice happy home for this embellishment, rather than just finding random places to stick the stickers on the page. Thanks so much for joining me. I would love for you to come share your work or ask your questions on our Facebook group, Scrapbook Like a Superhero. And this is the traveling phase of the year for the trade show all done. So next week we should be back on a nice morning Wednesday schedule. Thanks for bearing with me while we're at CHA and returning home. Have a wonderful week and happy scrapping.